Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Shawnee Mission Unitarian Universalist Church. Whoever you are, whoever you love, wherever you are on your life's journey, you are welcome here. We are so happy that you've chosen this YouTube channel, this Sabbath, this sanctuary in time. We know that you have so many options on Sunday morning, and that you chose to be here is something that we celebrate. We extend an especially warm welcome to our visitors and anyone who may be watching online for the first time. If you're watching online for the first time, please complete the Get in Touch form in the description area of the video. We now invite everyone to greet each other in any way you feel comfortable. It is good to be together. It is good to be together, sitting quietly in the sanctuary. And now Reverend Rose has a few announcements.
Good morning. The Welcome Back Sunday will be on the second Sunday of September, and after that is when all regular programming will resume for the church year. That means that Sunday RE will be in the classrooms with their teachers, choir will begin, and Wednesday night RE as well. On that day, please be sure to bring your water from the places you visited or from your home for our water communion that day. We are so excited to start another church year, to see what emerges from within us as an expression of our faith. There will be special treats that day after the service, if we're still in COVID green, and we will be having an involvement fair so you can understand how to get connected after the service that day. And speaking of RE, there's someone I'd like to introduce you to. We are very proud to introduce our new 2nd through 5th grade teacher, Micah Rose Emerson. We are so excited to have her here. Micah Rose has worked for many, Micah Rose has worked for many years in Presbyterian churches with children and youth, and these days is serving as the anti-racist coordinator for the wider Presbyterian Urban and Immigration Ministry Network, and has a tech job in KCMO where she lives with her fiance, Nyalisa, and her pets. She is thrilled to be here, so thank you for the warm welcome. And then lastly, the youth group is having a hootenanny this Friday, September 2nd, to start off a fresh, fun new year for the youth. So please bring your teenage children for what will surely be a memorable evening. Stephen Covey said, "Most of us spend too much time on what is urgent and not enough time on what is important." Come, let us spend this hour on what is important. This moment, this experience of these people, this breath. Please rise as you are willing and able for our opening hymn, number 298, "Wake Now My Senses."
Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in all. Keep with the web of creation your vow. Giving, receiving as love shows us how. Wake now my reason, reach out to the new. Join with each pilgrim who quests for the true. Honor the beauty and wisdom of time. Suffer thy limit and praise the sublime. Wake now, compassion, give heed to the cry. Voices of suffering fill the wide sky. Take as your neighbor both stranger and friend, praying and striving their hardship to end. Wake now my conscience, with justice thy guide. Join with all people whose rights are denied. Take not for granted a privileged place. God's love embraces the whole human race. Wake now my vision of ministry clear. Brighten my pathway with radiance here. Mingle my calling with all who will share. Work toward a planet transformed by our care.
As Jen Nelson comes forward to light our chalice, we invite you to join as we recite our covenant, which is shown on the walls behind me. Let us affirm that love is the doctrine of this church, the quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with one another. Thank you, Jen. Each month, we as a community take time to reflect on a theme. The children do this in their classes, and we do it here in worship and in our small groups. This month, the theme is prioritizing what is most important in life. Say the word prioritize, and I have an almost Pavlovian reaction. I start to drool. My skin turns flush, and my heart begins to race, and I think back to my Franklin planner. For those of you unfamiliar with the term, the Franklin Planner was and still is a paper-based time management system first sold in the Stone Age, pre-spreadsheet, pre-cell phone mid-1980s. It was called the Franklin Planner after Benjamin Franklin, who kept a small private book of goals and tasks and spent part of each day in solitude and planning. At the company I worked for, everyone had a Franklin Planner. And I remember the initial training we received in our corporate meeting room. The certified Franklin time management rep started by saying, "Imagine that you've died and you're observing your own memorial service. You're floating in the air and there are all your friends and loved ones. They can't see you, of course. Now imagine what each person might say about you during the memorial. His music made the world sing," one would say. "She was a wonderful teacher who impacted many lives," another might say. "That Nobel Prize was well deserved." "How did you come to deserve such praise?" he asked. "And if you're not on that path right now, how will you get there?" "With this." And he would hold up the Franklin Planner. "If you're not on the path, you can get on it with this. The Franklin Time Management System can be the vehicle that transports you to personal success." Franklin Time Management was all about goals, long-term, short-term, intermediate term, and tasks and priorities. And let me tell you, I was hooked. I loved the precision of the planning and the detail. I became what was known at the time as a Franklinstein. Setting up my Franklin system each year became something of a sacrament. There it was, a shrink-wrapped brick of planner pages representing an entire year. I'd peel off the shrink wrap, put the first 3 months into a month's worth of pages into my portable binder, and put the rest into a storage binder in a leather-like cardboard sleeve. So I started each workday with my 15 minutes of solitude and planning, meticulously recording my daily tasks in alphanumeric order. There were A tasks, things that had to be done, numbered A1 through A5 or 6. There were the B tasks, things that should be done, also numbered in order of importance. Then there were the C tasks, things that could be done. Each day I dutifully make my task list, mark tasks complete, and move the plastic snap-out divider one day forward to easily open my planner to the current day. As each month passed, I'd move the completed pages from my daily planner to the storage binder in exchange for a new month of blank pages. And at the end of the year, I would have a meticulously documented account of my progress toward my goals, and it would be placed in a place of honor on my office shelf. Well, that was the plan. Franklin Time Management worked for some people, but not for me. Indeed, it became a burden and a reminder of just how much I was not accomplishing. In the corporate world, there isn't always much time for 15 minutes of planning and solitude at the beginning of the day. And I found myself opening to the day's page and simply writing, "See yesterday's list," which had tasks that were still mostly not accomplished. And those goals I was working toward, whose goals were they anyway? I began to notice that my A, B, and C tasks did not truly reflect what the Franklin trainer said would be the steps that led to my personal success. The A tasks became things that had to be done and for which I would be paid. The B tasks turned out to be things that had to be done, mostly for other people, for which I was not paid. And the C tasks were the things that I wanted to do, but would probably never get done because there were so many A and B tasks. My experience with the Franklin time management system lasted for about 5 years. And can you guess how many full-year storage binders sat on my office shelf at the end of that time? 0. In fact, I ended up taking somewhat perverse pleasure in removing the year's worth of completed pages from the storage binder and dumping them into the shred bin. So I gave up on the Franklin Planner. Oh, I continued to make lists, and I still do. But they turned out to be completely the opposite of what I had tried to make work. My A tasks are now those things that bring me the most joy. My B tasks are those that bring joy to others. And my C tasks, I don't really have any of those. And while I no longer have a Franklin Planner, I did keep one element of the system. The snap-out divider I used to quickly turn to the current day. It is an official Franklin divider. It has a straight edge that's very useful in drawing. It is marked with a ruler on the side for measuring things. But more important, to me, it represents today, because I always used it to find today. And this is my new planner. Let me snap in my divider. This is my new divider. All it contains is today. I don't expect to be hovering over in the air during my own memorial service. That's kind of actually creepy. But perhaps my friends and loved ones might say, he understood the real value of today and knew how to live in the present. He understood those goals he needed to whose goals he needed to prioritize. And he focused on those things that brought joy to himself and others. Plan wisely.
All right, at this time, I invite the young people to come forward. All right, I'm actually going to have you, because we're going to do a chemical reaction today, I'm going to have you sit back just a little further, just to keep everyone safe. Yeah, can I have you two scoot back just a little bit? All right. Who likes chemical reactions? Who can tell me why chemical reactions are cool? Anyone? Yes.
On a molecular scale, you can occasionally see what happens.
Yes. Molecules. Thank you. Yes, we're gonna be rearranging some molecules today. Why else are chemical reactions cool?
Because sometimes you don't know what's going to happen.
You don't know what's going to happen. There's usually a big change, a transformation that can happen very quickly. That is correct. All right, I'm going to have Miles help me today. He's going to be my assistant. Miles, what is the first step we need to take before performing a chemical reaction?
Make sure the reaction is safe.
Safety. And what are some things we can do today to be safe?
Wear goggles.
Goggles are very important. And why are we safe? What could happen if we chose not to be safe?
You could get chemicals in your eye, which would probably blind you.
Yeah, we could get chemicals in our eyes, which could blind us. It could burn us. And if that happens, then we don't get to actually enjoy the transformation, right? Yeah. So in chemistry, the first step we take is safety, so that we can be a part of the second step, which is the transformation. And in science, there's usually there's a lot of awe and wonder. And so let's take the first step first. All right, so first thing we're gonna do, Miles, is we have some hydrogen peroxide. It's a little more intense than what you get at the store. So I'm going to put this in first, and then you can help me with the other parts. We're gonna put some dishwashing soap in. There we go. Big squirt, that's probably good. Thank you so much. And do we want food dye in it? Yes. All right, let's put a lot. What color we wanna? Blue? All right. I've tested this before, and so put in a lot, because when I did it, I didn't see much of a color, so. Thank you, yes, there we go, why not? Nice. All right, I'm just going to swirl this a little. We're gonna mix up the food dye and the dishwashing soap and the hydrogen peroxide. All right, next thing we're gonna do, we have some yeast, baking yeast. Do you know what baking yeast does?
It makes bread rise.
Perfect, yes, it does. All right, just to review, what's the first thing we do in chemistry?
Make sure it's safe.
So that we can enjoy the second thing, which is transformation. Do you want to pour it into the bottle? All right, after we pour, we're going to step back.
It looks like elephant toothpaste. Is it a berry?
He did, yeah. No, it's actually bluer than when I tried it earlier. All right, so to recap, just like in life, chemistry applies as well. There are things that we need to put first. And when we put things first, then we get second things that come after it that we enjoy, that maybe lead to transformation. And so just like in chemistry, put first things first. Thank you. And now please join me in singing the children out.
This is the time in our order of service that we set aside to draw to heart and mind those in our midst who are suffering and those who feel the sweet relief of their burdens easing. We give our love to those untangling themselves from relationships that no longer serve them. We grieve for the loss of energy and time that chronic illness takes upon the body and mind. And our hearts go out to all who are struggling to make ends meet. We extend our gratitude to people who make caring for children their primary spiritual practice, and we join in wonder with all people who are bravely facing their final days. And as always, we rejoice over the exquisite beauty in this world, as small or life-changing as each piece of beauty might be. And I now invite you to come forward and briefly share in 2 to 3 sentences a rare joy or a profound sorrow and light a candle.
This is a candle of sorrow for Paul Spahn, who passed away last night. Paul's health declined rapidly over the past few weeks, and he entered hospice care yesterday. Our hearts are with Paul's family, his wife Carolyn, and their children and grandchildren.
I'm Jennifer Nelson. I'm lighting a candle of concern for my friend Paul's father, Mike. He had brain surgery to remove 2 glioblastoma tumors. The surgery was successful, but unfortunately he suffered a stroke during the surgery, so they're not able to do further treatment. They're focusing on quality of life rather than quantity, so I'm keeping them all in my heart.
My name's Annette. This is a candle of joy, I think. I retired at the end of April, and this is the first summer I've had off in a very long time. But on Tuesday, I took a part-time job. On Tuesday, I'm going to start teaching English to immigrants through the Johnson County Adult Education Program. So I'm nervous about it and excited about it, and hopefully it'll be great. So we'll see.
I'm Alyssa Malozzi, and I'm lighting a candle of luck. I go for a CT scan tomorrow to see how I'm doing, and Wednesday I see my doctor to go over the results. So, wish me luck.
This is a candle of sorrow for Wynn Etzenhauser, who had a stroke and is going on to hospice. And this is a candle for all the people in our midst who are struggling with addiction or their family members. I light the remaining candles for all the joys and sorrows that remain unspoken in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts. Please join me for a moment of silence. Put your feet flat on the floor. Your hands in your lap. Take a deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. Our only goal for this moment is to be present, to release some of our worries about the future, thoughts about the past. As an embodiment practice, I invite you to bring both your hands palms up in your lap and slowly open and close your hands, taking special attention to the sensation of your fingers when they touch your palm and breathing deeply. We'll just do this for 5 breaths. May the world practice love. May human dignity rise up and speak so loudly that hatred is conquered. May we never forget that we are sensitive, moldable beings, that we will become whatever we practice. For the sake of ourselves, for the sake of our children, may we not practice fear, but instead practice bravery and hope. I invite you to draw into your mind someone in your life, someone who you know who needs to practice that bravery and hope, someone who is struggling. Send them a well wish, a prayer, a thought. Letting the corners of your lips turn up. Send them your joy, your love. Now I invite you to speak their name into this room of compassion and kindness and understanding. May they and we be agents of an everlasting peace. Blessed be, and amen.
Voice still and small, deep inside all, I hear you call, singing. In dark and rain, sorrow and pain, still you remain, singing. Calming my fears, quenching my tears, through all the years, singing.
Our first reading today comes from the great Beyonce. From her new widely acclaimed song, You Won't Break My Soul. She says, "Now I just fell in love and I just quit my job. I'm gonna find new drive. Dang, they work me so hard. Work my 9, then off past 5. They work my nerves. That's why I cannot sleep at night. I'm looking for a new motivation. I'm looking for a new foundation. I'm on that new vibration. I'm building my own foundation. You won't break my soul. You won't break my soul."
Our second reading today comes from the widely acclaimed Lao Tzu from the Tao Te Ching. Simplicity, patience, compassion. These 3 are your greatest treasures. Simple in actions and thoughts, you return to the source of being. Patient with both friends and enemies, you accord with the way things are. Compassionate toward yourself, you reconcile all beings in the world.
Put first things first, and we get second things thrown in. Put second things first, and we lose both the first and second things. These are the words of C.S. Lewis, author of the Chronicles of Narnia. Put first things first, and we get the second thing thrown in. Put second things first, and we lose both first and second. I invite you to imagine with me that your life as a whole is a quilt, and that the most important things, the first things, the things that your healthiest self prioritizes, are the pieces of fabric that are in the center of the pattern. And that from this beating center flows all else in a harmonious, beautiful pattern which sings a life of balance and wellness. On the screen is an image of some quilts that my own great aunts made, and they're sacred to me. My parents used to lay them on my bed for special occasions, and I would go to sleep feeling like I was wrapped in 1,000 pieces of stillness. Their simple evenings, each stitch like a care for the smallest of things. I felt that I was wrapped in another world, one where the women in my family had time to quilt. Now, it would be nice if all the quilts of our lives looked like this. All the pieces neat and tidy, all the priorities right where they belong, the way we spend our time lined up precisely with our values. But all too often we end up with patterns in our quilt of life that look a little bit like we threw them together in a dark room while we were scrambling to get breakfast and find our wallet and get to work on time. Which may actually be a more accurate representation of how our lives really look. This is what I think is meant by first things first. That first, we must slow down, simplify, be present, rest, breathe, put our spiritual lives first. To simplify, because these days our lives will just pile and pile and pile up on us. We are so stimulated, and our quilt patterns just can't breathe. There's just a mess of scraps, because who has time to quilt these days? I'm really wondering, who here has time to quilt these days? Yes, Leslie Glenn. That's because she is making time to quilt these days. We all have time to quilt these days. We're just not prioritizing it. Let us return to imagining the quilts of our lives. I ask you, are there ways that your practice, your self-care, your rest, your health are being put second? Are there? I'd like to hear you say it. Yes, yes. Remember, there's a reason that they call it sacred geometry, why they call it the laws of color and music theory, because there's got to be a rhyme and a reason for what comes first, so that the second thing can come, so that the third thing can come, so that the pattern can sing. In order for each hue and shadow and shade to pop, everything must work together, to form what we know upon seeing it immediately is beautiful. So thus, I task you to take your basket of scraps and try to sort through them. But before you get too overwhelmed with this project, I'll tell you that if I were to look out and see you each as a beautiful quilt, if I were to gaze with wonder upon what keeps most of us from balance within our lives, I have to say that there are difficulties that we as a society struggle with. There are ways that our world pushes us to put second things first and even rewards us handsomely for doing so. Sometimes we don't even get the space to do the discernment about what is the first thing until we die. There was a hospice chaplain who worked with dying patients who asked them, "What is your greatest regret in life? What advice do you have for us?" And guess what their advice was for all of us youngsters? The majority of people said, "I wish I hadn't worked so much." So, I'm just curious. Even those of us who are retired, even those of us who don't have a job, those of us whose very existence feels like a full-time job, are there ways that you are out of balance with your rest? Because I think that directly relates to being out of balance with work. Have you really been able to put your personal, familial, spiritual, restful needs at the center? Or have we been handed down a quilt, generation to generation, that was stitched by fingers that were enslaved, pieced by hands that were unpaid or calloused? Do we spread across our larger bedspread every night an urgency towards working that all too often leaves us as a people unwell, undignified, disconnected, and vulnerable? For we must remember our nation's story that is stitched into the fabric of our psyches and systems is one of forced labor, and that it doesn't have to be like this. We don't have to have this relationship to time or work. In fact, I was remembering that when I did my clinical pastoral education, where we would go into the hospital and meet with patients, and then in the afternoon we would meet as a group. And there was one man in my cohort who was Somali, and he was always late to our cohort. And finally we got to the point that we needed to process it. And so it came out that many people in the cohort thought that he was being rude by being late to this work meeting. But then he said, "It would be so rude for me to be on the way to work and see someone who I know as a chaplain and not stop and ask them how their family member is." And that really shook me around our relationship to time, our relationship to what work is. And that got me thinking, are there ways, and this is work that we all have to do individually, where we find wiggle room to massage that work-life balance to liberate ourselves from this heavy legacy? For our quilt is rent and torn. For all over the place, I see exhaustion, burnout, mental health decline, physical injuries that are rampant. Think of our nurse force, our teachers, our medical students, our grocery clerks, parents, you name it. We're all pretty tuckered out. So I invite you to become curious about how messages of urgency and duty and shame around resting penetrate all of our lives and inhibit us from living our best spiritual selves. Indeed, Eartha Kitt said, "I have no dream job. I do not dream of labor. Next week, in part 2 of this service, we will hear from a labor organizer and member of the fellowship in Hutchinson who will come to speak to us on spirituality and human dignity in the workplace. But please don't hear me telling you to quit your jobs. I need my job. Hear me encouraging you to acknowledge the trauma in our nation's history and to remember that whenever there is trauma, there's difficulty in setting boundaries, usually. And thus, I'm wanting to give you the courage to just find that wiggle room and start putting first things first, to put your health first whenever you can, to make that choice to put your mental health first, to put your rest first when you have the chance, to put your family first. And then when you do go to work, which many, many, many of us do, to act out of those 3 greatest treasures from which all else flows: simplicity, patience, and compassion. For you can change the pattern of your quilt by inhabiting your work life differently too. And that would be just as radical and healing. For when you become simple in actions and thoughts, you return to the source of being, and you could do that in your workplace. When you become patient with both your work bestie and your work enemy, you accord with the way things are. And when you become compassionate towards yourself in the workplace, you set boundaries around yourself, and then you begin to reconcile with all beings in the world. That presence in your workplace could be those 1,000 pieces of stillness. Each moment in your work life could be a stitch signaling the smallest care for the tiniest thing. Because you can find and keep your balance. You and I are welcome at any moment to pause, breathe, recenter, ask for help, phone a friend, eat a snack, lay down, learn to quilt, frolic, make music, build compassion, do all manner of things to support you in getting that self-care back at the center of your quilt, because safety first. And this is how you keep yourself safe and well. And from that place of a sanctuary, all else flows easier, more peaceful, more intentionally. So let us close with a moment of discernment. I invite you to close your eyes. And in your mind, allow a single word to come into your thoughts of something you can commit to do to care for yourself today. Your word may be breathe, boundary, poem, water, patience, simplify. Then I'll have you take one palm, face it up, and with your other writing hand, I want you to scribe that word right into your palm. Just write it with invisible ink with your fingernail. And then you can take that hand, put it right on your heart, hold your own hand. Just something we do for ourselves. Because like Beyonce said to the grind machine, you won't break my soul. Let us put first things first, and from this will flow a new motivation, a new foundation, a new vibration. And then we will be building our new foundation, stitching a new story into a new quilt, one more beautiful and intricate and just, with the most important thing at the center. Blessed be.
The work of the church depends on us, our generosity of time, wisdom, and financial resources. We invite you to give generously to support the ongoing work of the church. The offering will now be given and received in grateful appreciation of our shared values. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Please rise in body or in spirit for our closing hymn, number 299.
This is a new hymn for us, so we are going to have a brief teaching moment. So if you will please repeat after me. May I have the opening interval? So repeat after me. Do, 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 and do, 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 and do, 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 and do, 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 and do, 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 and do, 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 do. Let's do our way through the whole thing, and do, 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 do. We're gonna go for it. Ben's going to play it through once, and then we'll sing away. Make channels for the streams of love where they may broadly run, and love has overflowing streams to fill them every one. But if at any time we cease such channels to provide, the very founts of love for us will soon be parched and dried. For we must share if we would keep this gift all else above. We cease to give, we cease to have, such is the love of love. You're rock stars. Way to go.
This week, your task, or today, your task is to stay true to your heart, the thing you wrote on your hand. Go in peace.